Hi, my name is Catherine. Welcome to MarketX Interview of the Week. Today we have Kaselionis, CEO and founder of Breakaway Funding. Kim has founded Breakaway to really take advantage of the crowdfunding opportunities provided by the Jobs Act. As a former CEO and chairman of Circle Bank, Kim has led 53 consecutive profitable quarters, and she has been recognized as one of the 150 most influential women in business in the Bay Area. Welcome, Kim. How's it going?
Excellent. Thank you, Catherine, and thank you for such a nice introduction. I appreciate that.
Great. Could you tell us a bit more about your business and your insights on crowdfunding?
Absolutely. So, as Catherine was mentioning, as the former CEO of a community bank, our company was privately held, and when the owners decided they wanted to harvest their investment, this was right in the end of the financial collapse. So the capital markets were really not that favorable to community bank stocks. So as a result, we were fortunate to attract a number of larger banks as possible suitors for the institution, and ultimately ended up getting a very nice price for the shareholders. The month that the bank sale closed, I was introduced to equity crowdfunding, and I thought, my God, this is brilliant for banks. Equity crowdfunding is really brilliant for banks for the reason you had previously said. It provides the vehicle through which businesses can reach out to their community, invite their community to become part of the ownership culture of the company, thereby raising new sources of capital to position them for traditional bank financing. So I thought, this is too powerful, I've got to do something to this, hence Breakaway Funding was born.
Great. So first of all, could you tell us what motivated you to join the community banking? How did that all start?
Well, that is really an interesting story. Nothing really motivated me to do that.
Right.
In fact, as a child, I thought, oh my God, banking? How boring.
Right.
How boring. So the fact that when the Circle Bank was initially formed, I was part of the community equity group that put in 1/3 of the original capital. And as a result of my involvement with that group, I was offered a board seat about 18 months after the institution opened. Unfortunately, like what happens to many startup companies, it got off on a pretty rocky start. And the company was recapitalized, went through a big management change. It was a very interesting story in and of itself. It could be a little soap opera. But I was fortunate to be able to be offered the position of the CEO about 5 or 6 years after the institution was actually opened.
So could you tell us right now, for your business, what's the most interesting part about being part of the startup community, and what's the hardest part?
Well, definitely the funnest part, which was true also in banking, is meeting with entrepreneurs and really getting involved in their passion and their vision and their stories. It's really inspiring, and so that part of the banking and in Breakaway is really the most fun, is being exposed to entrepreneurs and their ideas on a daily basis. The most difficult part, I would say, is this: that notwithstanding that the Title III of the Jobs Act, version 1.0, is not out, there are still a lot of securities exemptions through which businesses and investors, average American investors, can participate in private capital, and there is a big information gap. So when I go out and talk and I'll poll the audience, only a very small portion of the participants have actually heard of crowdfunding or heard of the Jobs Act, and so that part of it has to be resolved.
Yeah, I can't agree more. And part of what we're trying to do is really bridging the investor education part. So could you tell us a little bit more about, as a private investor, what are the metrics when it comes to evaluate a company?
Well, I would say that is very individualized, but I will tell you how we approach it at Breakaway, and surprisingly enough, it's through the lens of bankers. So if I can refer back to the 5 C's of credit, right? We're talking about character, capital, capacity, conditions, and collateral. If you take a look at all of the variables that go within each of those categories, I think you can do a pretty good job of evaluating a business proposition. So for example, in character, we look at who's the management team? Is it a robust team? Do they have the experience? Are they willing to listen to suggestions and recommendations, right? So that really talks about the character of the management team. And then we can go down the list. Capital. Do they have skin in the game, right? Do they have any capital at risk? Do they know how much capital they need? Do they have the right mix of capital? So we'll go through each of the 5 C's of credit and then analyze each of the elements within that to determine whether or not we really think that the business has a good chance of being successful in the long run.
I see. Interesting. Great. So what do you think are the metrics when it comes to private investing?
Well, I think really that each investor is going to have their own set of metrics. And as a former banker, we like to look at the metrics of private capital through the lens of the 5 C's of credit. So those are character, capital, capacity, conditions, and collateral.
Great. Can you break it down for us?
Sure. So we'll talk about the first C is character. It really talks in the banking world, it's really about the borrower's willingness to repay the loan. But in the private equity world, we want to expand on that a little bit and really have it encompass the management team. Are all the key players in place? Do they have the required experience to really execute the business plan? Are they willing to listen to recommendations, right? So when we're talking about character, we're really talking more holistically about the management team of a particular company.
I see. That's a great advice for entrepreneurs and also investors. What do you think are some, best practices and also common mistakes you see when it comes to, someone who just got into the investment space and they wanted to really help our small and medium business to grow?
So, it's always 2 sides of the same coin. So what you do can also be what you don't do.
Right.
So I would say the most significant is that people just aren't aware. They aren't aware that they have an opportunity to support local businesses or businesses with whom the mission is aligned with the investor value. So I think that just being aware that you have those options today is number 1.
Exactly.
The second thing I would say is they don't know where to start with the due diligence, or they're afraid to embark on that kind of learning journey. So due diligence really includes reading the plan, looking at the financial statements, understanding the competitive landscape, right? We can go back to the 5 C's.
Right.
So the competitive landscape would be kind of the conditions under one of the 5 C's. And if you have questions or don't really know where to start, there are plenty. I'm sure you have investor education. Breakaway has investor education complimentary. So there's a lot of resources out there. So do the due diligence work. What else? Diversification is another one, both plus and minus, right? So in the crowdfunding world, really one of the benefits is that you can take a pool of money from, $1,000 to $100,000 and really diversify your risk between asset class, right? Are you in stocks or bonds or debt? Do you want to look at different industries, different geographies? So diversification is another, I think, best practice. And really don't invest more than you can afford to lose.
Right, exactly.
So I would say those are some of the top.
That's great insights, and we wanted to, for a lot of our investors who are millennials, we understand that, we like the idea of motive investing. So in your opinion, what do you think are the biggest trends going on? And let's say, going down 5-10 years, which of these ideas will really impact our lives?
Well, I'm going to say what you would probably think is the most obvious, and then I'm going to put in a plug for the other 98% of the companies that are out there that are looking for capital. So certainly the fintech is a huge technology is just transforming our lives at like the speed of light. So anything having to do, particularly with the payment systems and banking and the way that we're capitalizing and moving money not only in this country but around the world is really amazing. But then I wanted to put in the plug for the other 98% of the companies out there that are doing amazing work with clean energy or food or water, so that these are really important companies in our ecosystem that really should have also have a fair share of getting people's investment dollars to support them.
So in that space of clean energy, food, water, is there any company you think are really doing things a different way that really brings change to our mass market?
Well, I would say that on a mass market level, there are a lot of companies that are out there that are very early seed and stage. But going back to the fintech, I think the couple of the companies that jump out for me, probably known to you certainly as well, are this whole issue about digital currency, the whole Bitcoin that is really beginning to get a big adoption. You've got Stripe and Square and Apple Pay. These are competitors to the banking industry, really causing them some grief. And then, of course, there's companies like Alibaba, right? You get 3 for 1.
Yeah.
A marketplace, a search engine, and a bank. I mean,
yeah.
So we're only limited really by our imagination.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many of these, sort of all-in-one services, right? Now you can go there for really the experience of it versus just, one simple task. And that's kind of even with fintech, right? We want to provide the one, go-to place for you to understand investing, but also help you to invest in a much simpler way, even with pre-IPO stocks. So, sorry, a little plug for, MarketX. And, a lot of private investors worry about exit, right? I think that's a common topic for many angel investors. Could you share with us some, interesting experiences or stories? How do investors feel about exit opportunities?
Well, I think, again, I'm going to go back to, it's really, first of all, they want to get out, right? This is not a philanthropic contribution to the for-profit company. So always when we're working with companies that want to raise capital, our very first question is, and how do you intend to get your investors out? So each company and each business plan is going to have a different strategy. So if you're a consumer product company, you might be looking to sell to a larger consumer product company. If you are, let's say, a restaurant, perhaps, or a service company, maybe through dividends.
Yep.
So each business plan and each company is going to have its own unique exit strategy.
Right.
But ask about it.
Definitely. And, you should definitely find an expert like him. Also, on the end of, for a lot of investors, there has to be some consideration for tax treatments. Could you share with some, common questions or, concerns that people should think about before they get into a private investment?
Right. So, not licensed to practice tax or law, but I just from my viewpoint is this: you should really understand what kind of an entity structure the company you are investing in is. Is it a corporation? Is it a limited partnership? Because the tax treatment will be different. And then I would ask really, how, if it's a limited partnership or an LLC, does the company have plans to actually give cash distributions to pay the tax? So really these are questions as part of your due diligence, should be on your checklist.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation about the tax treatment and what we can expect from the company as it relates to support to pay the taxes if there are any.
Exactly. And so Kim, you are named one of the 150 most influential women in business. Could you share with us some of your experiences and best advice for female founders? And also, what can we do to get more women involved in the startup space?
Well, I would love to see more women and young girls aspire to be entrepreneurs and to be presidents and to be CEOs of companies. And here's what I would say to all those young female aspiring entrepreneurs: go out and just do it. Go out and do it, and find yourself some mentors, men and women, who can help you navigate leadership. Don't give up. Prepare for battle.
Yeah.
It is really, you have to have some pretty thick skin to survive in any industry, being a female, particularly when you want to aspire to the top. So I would say, if you have a passion for it, what you're doing, go full forge, go full straight ahead, and don't quit before the miracle happens. You can do it.
Well, that's words of wisdom for a lot of our audience, and also for people who's really interested in jumping in the startup space. Also, what we've seen in our economy is that the U.S. is still going through a recession. Startups are likely to play a larger role in our overall economy. What do you think we can do as a U.S. policymaker to help our small and medium businesses to be even better?
Well, you nailed it right on the head. In fact, as you well know, small businesses disproportionately create more jobs than any other industry in our economy. So they really play an integral role in the fabric. Unfortunately, since 2008, the number of business deaths has outpaced business startups.
Wow.
Not a good statistic for an economy that is really dependent upon small businesses. So to the lawmakers out there, I would say, please pass favorable tax policy and get these crowd-funded Title III 2.0, or in your individual states, get the individual state crowdfunding regulations passed, and please don't make them onerous so that they become ineffective.
Well, thank you, Kim, for joining us today for our interview, and please watch out for next week's MarketX interview of the week.
Hi, this is Kim Kaselionis, Managing Partner and Founder of Breakaway Funding, with a special invitation to all MarketX community. Please join us at breakawayfunding.com, where you can get information, education, and access to exciting opportunities in your community. Together, we can make a difference.